Good evening. Welcome to the 2023 Worcester Mayoral debate hosted by GBH News. I'm Sam Turkin, Worcester reporter for GBH News. I'll be moderating tonight's debate here at our studio in Worcester. We're broadcasting live on YouTube and at gbhnews.org. With us tonight are the 5 candidates running for Worcester Mayor. We have current Mayor Joseph Petty. We have Vice Chair of City Council, Donna Calorio. We have City Councilor, Christian King. We have former Chair of the Worcester Human Rights Commission, Guillermo Kramer Jr. And we have community activist, Bill Coleman. Thank you so much for being here. A little about the format for tonight's debate. We'll keep track of time to ensure every candidate has a fair chance at answering each question. We want this debate to be a discussion among the candidates. As I told the candidates before we started, we want it to be informal. So every question will include an open period of rebuttal and discussion. But we won't allow filibustering or allow candidates to talk above each other. We don't have a lot of time, only about an hour, so we'll get right to it. Before we get into questioning, we want to give the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves. We'll go in order. We arrange the seating by random draw, so we will start on my left.
Great. Thanks so much for hosting this. I know GBH has had a little bit of time since they've hosted this last debate. I'm excited to be running for mayor. I think the reality here is that I presented myself back in April as a much-needed choice for the city. My hope is that we are really moving our city forward, but I believe new leadership is needed in order to do that. I'm running for mayor because I think it's time for the next generation to really start taking their seat at the table. I believe very clearly that my lived experiences are how I lead, and I want to make sure that those lived experiences that are not unique to residents here in the city of Worcester are brought to the decision-making table. I grew up in the 3rd floor of triple-deckers throughout the city. We'd bop around when rent prices would go up. So many residents can relate to that. I really understand how the struggle actually is. My parents worked very hard for the little that we had, and the reality is that now in the year of 2023, that struggle still exists in our city. Too many of our residents are fighting to survive and not to thrive, so that's why I'm running for mayor.
Ms. Calorio?
Hi, I'm Donna Calorio, and I'm just finishing up my 2nd term on the City Council. I've been Vice Chair of the City Council as well. I also spent 2 terms as a school committee member, which gives me a unique, perspective because I've already served on the school committee, so I understand what the schools go through. I have been a lifelong resident of Worcester, also brought up in a triple-decker. 30 years I taught at Quinsigamond Community College as a psychology and sociology professor. I'm a businesswoman in a family business. We employ over 100 people from all different types of walks of life. And my focus really is affordability. I'd like to keep Worcester, and I focus on keeping Worcester affordable because I'd like the people that work in the city to be able to live in the city. And I basically believe Worcester is a great place to bring up your children and to live, and I just love the city of Worcester. Thank you.
Next candidate, Mr. Coleman.
Hi, I'm Bill Coleman, candidate for mayor, candidate for Worcester City Council at large. I grew up in a generation where we had President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. I remember as a young kid being very impressed with President Kennedy and Senator Edward Kennedy. I had the opportunity in 1976 to work in Washington, D.C. as an administrative aide to former U.S. Senator Edward W. Brooke. It was a great experience. Yeah, and working for the senator and working in Washington, I had a chance to be a federal grant writer and to learn the inner and outer workings of government from a national basis. Returned to Worcester to finish my education at Worcester State College and, got involved in the community, served on the board of directors of the Worcester Public Library, was a member of the commission that helped develop our senior center, and look forward to serving the city in many ways.
Gonna have to cut you off there.
Sure.
Mr. Petty.
First, I want to thank you, Sam, and WGBH, and the fellow candidates, and also the listening audience here tonight. I'm running for mayor and for city council at large because I want to continue the momentum of the city of Worcester. I see a great city, a city that had a lot of successes over the last 12 years, a lot of accomplishments. I've earned the trust of the voters, and they trust me not to send the city backwards. I have been on the side of one of the things that people struggle with now is balance, and we need collaboration in order to make this city successful. I haven't been on the dissenting side of a 10-to-1 vote. People think I'm probably too moderate. However, I think you need to be even keeled in order to be is the key to the success of the city of Worcester, which leads to a welcoming city and a city that listens to diverse voices. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go together, you go together. So, and I just want to thank, again, I ask the voters on November 7th for their vote.
Mr. King, last but not least.
Thanks, Sam. As a frontline social worker, I know firsthand that the economic renaissance we've experienced here in the city has not trickled down to everyday people. We've been too focused on downtown and the ballpark district and not focused enough on our local neighborhoods and their economic hubs. I think that the same old leadership style is failing. Our housing prices are skyrocketing. Crime and mental health challenges are before us. As a social worker with a clinical background and elected official of 8 years has been a part of this renaissance and a part of our positive movement, I'm uniquely positioned to lead this city forward. I'm known to ask the tough questions and then get to the proven solutions by working with my colleagues. I'm running for mayor so that we and us can write the next chapter in Worcester's history together to build a safe, sustainable, and affordable city where multi-generations can remain and support one another. It's important that we center our youth, folks that want to age in place with dignity, our educators, and that's why I'm running for a historic campaign to be mayor.
Thank you, Mr. King. Okay, we're going to get into the questioning. It's no secret, as some of you mentioned, all of you mentioned, Worcester is suffering from a significant shortage of affordable housing. Median rents have skyrocketed, fueling more homelessness and forcing other longtime residents to move elsewhere. Mr. Petty, the city is providing some financial assistance to help more people afford housing here. But what do you believe are some concrete steps Worcester can take to stem this surge in housing insecurity?
One of the issues is housing. The state has failed over the last several years to produce enough housing. I think you have to work with the state, and hopefully they're going to be coming out with their housing plan and their bonding bill soon. And we need to build more housing for everyone in all types of classes here in the city of Worcester. One of the things I did was that I asked, one of my inauguration speeches, look at the 3 decades. We had about 2,000 to 3,000 units that went empty at that time, and we put $5 million. We got a federal grant. We got Harry Chandler helped with some money for that. Look at the 3 decades and how you can renovate them and bring them up to code. And that's where you can, at least that will provide some of the housing issues. We just made an announcement about a down payment assistance of up to $25,000, which is up from $5,000. And also for assist landlords so they can, if they lock into affordable housing, that they'll be getting a grant from the city of Worcester. This is going to be the biggest issue that we're facing going forward, and I think everybody's concentrating on affordable housing because nobody, if you talk to people, they're afraid their children won't be able to buy a house in the city of Worcester.
So other candidates, would you care to respond to that question as well?
I'd love to.
Mr. King, you'll follow.
Sure.
You'll follow Mr. King, sorry.
You know, I would like to say that, you know, one of the tools that we have is inclusionary zoning. I've been pushing for inclusionary zoning for some time. I partnered with the Housing Coalition. The Planning Board unanimously supported a more generous affordability and inclusionary zoning. Mayor Petty voted for less affordable options. You know, I think one of the things that we need to do, and I filed an order on, is that we have to look at a feasibility study of what exactly is what exactly is affordable housing for the city of Worcester. You know, we have units. We know that for a single person for a 2-bedroom, you have to make $65,000 a year to live here. If you're on minimum wage, you have to work 80 hours. So we have to take a look at minimum wage, supporting that in the state level, but we can't continue to just wait for the state. Our accessory dwelling units, we have to support that by right with no restrictions, and we have to lean on evidence-based research here, not just anecdotal stories from developers, big-time developers that are coming into our city and not doing right by the folks that live here.
Mr. Coleman.
One of the things that I'd like to see happen is an audit of land in the city of Worcester, buildable land for buildable housing. I'd like to see the city council recommend to the city manager that we do an audit. At one time in Worcester, you can go to the fire department on Grove Street and ask for, is there any available starter houses? Those are housing that might have been vacant and abandoned. People died without a will, or people died without family. And to find what parcels do we have available that we can convert into affordable housing, maybe fix up that housing through a grant and then auction it off through some type of lottery, so that families and individuals can have a chance at these new properties. That's an innovative idea that hasn't been suggested that I would strongly suggest to help relieve us on our housing crisis.
Ms. Gloria, you can go
Okay.
first.
Thank you. So I think the key here is a balance. I think we need a balance, and we have to look to this through what I call a common sense lens. So we have to encourage developers to come in and build, and we have to make sure that we can balance that with those that need housing. So one of the things that we've done, we have 2,000, I think approximately 2,000 units right now coming to market, both market rate, both affordable. We've put some money in, and I supported very much home ownership, and I think that we've seen a lot of good statistics on them. When someone buys their own home, you know, and their mortgage is generally less than if they can rent it, so they have some control over their finances. And I also think that, you know, I voted for the inclusionary zoning because I think that's another tool in our toolbox. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. I think that we have to look continually at different ways to balance things and to keep the city moving forward. Thank you.
Look, I think one of the important things that we need to touch on is the fact that developers are coming regardless. The city of Worcester is thriving. It is an attraction point for folks, not just in the area, but statewide and regionally. And I think that that's what we need to make sure we're honing in on. You know, I want to make sure that we're building up our state-to-city relationships. Mayor Petty alluded to the fact that the state has failed. And I understand that, but the reality here is that we have to ensure that we aren't just an afterthought for our state, which unfortunately seems to be happening. And so I want to make sure that we're reigniting that relationship between the state and the city. I also want to note the fact that 52% of our residents are renters. That's a problem. You know, we talk about affordable housing, but oftentimes we don't talk about the fact that a pathway to home ownership doesn't exist in this city. The average age here in the city of Worcester is 31 years old. I'm 29. Do you know how many of my friends who live here in the city of Worcester are talking about home ownership? None. Because it's not affordable. Because we're not pushing our city to ensure that we're talking to developers when they come in and say, hey, we are a community-first oriented city. And that's the type of lens that we should be taking when it comes to the future of affordable housing in the city.
We don't have much more time for this question specifically, but would anybody else care to add on to?
No, I'd like to rebut a little bit on this.
Okay.
Basically, inclusionary zoning, you needed 8 votes to get it done. Otherwise, we would have had nothing. I know there was people wanted to go 40, 50% of AMI, and he even said, Council King even said he could have a developer come in at 50% AMI. Well, we've had one developer come in so far, and they're rethinking their position of whether or not they're going to do affordable housing here in the city of Worcester. And the state is also, look at, if you're an MBTA district, the state's, each city has to do an economic development study to ensure that you're not too restrictive on allowing affordable housing here in the city of Worcester.
I should note that this next question we're going to get into ties into the housing, but Mr. King, if you want to add.
Sure. I'd like to
quickly.
rebut that. I'll just say, you know, my colleagues here, Donna Colorio and Joe Petty, in the middle of a housing crisis, voted for less affordability in our inclusionary zoning. It went against housing experts' recommendations. And as far as, you know, developers not coming in at this time, we produced 5,000 units. We've given tax cuts before the city was able to move forward due to resistance. and say, hey, if we're giving you millions of dollars in tax breaks, you should give us some affordability so our residents can continue to live here.
Ms. Gloria, if you want to.
I was just going to say, I heard the stats too, that we only have one person that's willing to come to the table after we voted for the inclusionary zoning. Let's just look at the common sense thing there. Really, was it that we have the inclusionary zoning and everybody wanted to get them, get their housing units at least in the process? So, I mean, we have to balance things.
We're going to move on to the next question. There's been a lot of talk, quote unquote, about the Worcester Renaissance. And the development boom here in Worcester in recent years. Some people say these projects have made Worcester more of an attractive city to live in and visit. Other people tell me, well, it could be the beginning of gentrification and displacement. This one is for you, Mr. King, as I said. Kind of ties into the whole housing issue, but how do you think Worcester can keep growing and at the same time remain a welcoming place for families that call it home? And I'm starting with Mr. King, but again, every candidate will have a chance to respond to this.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is be more intentional in our governing. You know, when we're looking at options for affordability, accessory dwelling units, you look at the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, you look at those sorts of measures as it relates to affordable housing, we have to vote the right way. It's one thing to sit up here and talk about it, but you actually have to vote the right way. And you know what? We have big-time developers coming from outside of the city, coming from Boston. And I love Boston, but I love Worcester more. We have to make sure we maintain who we are and that we're allowing folks. We have right now an uptick in the unsheltered population of our elderly, folks trying to age in place. We have to be intentional about elderly housing. We have to work with our federal and our state partners. And it comes from the very top. We have to be engaging with those folks on a regular basis. And we are a welcoming city. We're a city for everyone. We're very diverse. But at the same time, we have to vote the right way, and we have to make sure, in addition to that, we're welcoming all of our youth, and we have a place where people can work, because small businesses require a local workforce, and we have to be able to allow those folks to live here and work here.
Mr. Coleman, would you care to respond?
Well, we've been talking about Worcester having a renaissance for many, many years. And Worcester has gone through periods of times we had a renaissance. When they were first developing what we used to have here called the Worcester Galleria, we were going through a renaissance. That was in the early 70s. And then in the 80s when we built the DCU Center, we talked about a Worcester renaissance. And, and it seems like while Worcester is further developing and we have a renaissance going on with our brand new ballpark, which is a great investment in the future of Worcester. But the whole idea of affordable housing, as we've touched on within this renaissance, when you talk $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month rents, is not welcoming. So we have to renegotiate that whole concept of what renaissance means. We're a city of arts, we're a city of culture, we're a city now of new immigrants coming and establishing themselves in the city of Worcester. So I think what we need to do is really say, hey, how do we spread those renaissance by putting space in there to allow for more people to participate?
Mr. Kramer Jr.
So I came back to the city of Worcester 4 years ago. I left for a couple of years to go to school and to start the organization that I started down there. When I came back to Worcester, the question that I was asking myself was, who is the Renaissance serving? The reality is we have made progress as a city. We have brought in folks into our city. But what about those that are in our neighborhoods? Those that are looking at these new units come online and thinking, I can't afford to move in there. That is the type of conversations that I'm having with folks. That is what people want to talk about, is who is this Renaissance serving? So I served as the community lead organizer for the citywide planning project, first one in 40 years. And it was great to be on the ground, having the conversations with folks, and really understanding from them, what are they looking for from our city? They've seen the revitalization, but they want to see it benefit them as well. And so it has, to an extent. So we need to start thinking about the fact that in order for us to move forward as a city, we really need to embrace the fact that the Renaissance is here, but it needs to be for everyone.
Mr. Petty, I'm going to come to you,
Okay.
but I want to give Ms. Calora, do you want to respond?
Yeah, just briefly, we have had a lot of economic development and growth downtown and in the Polo Park district area. And when I'm on the ground and I'm talking to people and I'm door knocking, because I do a lot of that, people talk about a couple things. One of the things is affordability, and the next thing is their streets. They're very, very, very upset with the streets and the condition of the streets, conditions of the sidewalks. So when we talk about the Renaissance and we talk about bringing more things to the neighborhoods, we have to focus on what people value, and what a lot of people value is their streets. But we also have to worry about, which I know is a bad word, we have to worry about the budget. So if we put on all these different plans and implement all these things, where are we going to cut the money? So I get a lot of councilors vote for a lot of things, and they want more and more and more and more, but people don't want their taxes to get any higher, and yet they want to look at what will we cut in the budget as well. So we have to we have to look at the balance of the whole thing.
Mr. Petty.
I remember probably 15 so years ago, 20 years ago, people saying, what's going on with Worcester? It can't get its act together. Well, we got our act together. We have a great renaissance here in the city of Worcester, and it didn't come by accident. It took a lot of hard work. It's just not the ballpark. Even without the ballpark, we're under direction of a very successful city of Worcester. Look at the investments going on, not just in the downtown area, which is a neighborhood, by the way, but through every neighborhood of the city of Worcester. I'm pretty proud to take care of the most vulnerable people here in the city of Worcester. We have a number of programs. They're going to be doing a housing program tomorrow at the city council. People should pay attention to that, because we want people to work and live in the same city. And we have free buses right now, and that will continue over the next year, so people can go to their jobs, can go to their doctors, and to their appointments. I look at what we've done, and investment in our schools, those are all neighborhood investments. Those are all helping people. Our population went up from 180,000 to 206,000. People are coming here to the city of Worcester, and all demographics, and they're happy to be here in the city of Worcester. It doesn't mean we forget the most vulnerable people. We don't want people leaving the city of Worcester. We work hard every single day taking care of the most vulnerable people here in the city. We'll continue to work hard to taking care of the most vulnerable people. Listen, during COVID, we fed thousands of kids who were in their homes, making sure they got fed. We made sure that everybody get connected to the internet during that period of time. We ensured that we had public safety. We ensured their health needs. We ensured they were getting the proper cultural food here in the city of Worcester. We take care of the most vulnerable. We will continue to take care of the most vulnerable people as we succeed here in the city of Worcester. You got to remember, success brings tax revenues. Tax revenues is able to pay for the programs everybody here at this venue wants to spend their money on. So this is important for tax revenue, and developers aren't the enemy. Really think of, I'm sorry.
No, you can finish
No,
that.
look at the developers. They're coming in here. They're slowed down since we passed inclusionary zoning. Maybe over time, once they get used to it, they'll come back. But listen, what are the interest rates now? 5%, 6%, 7% in certain parts, depending on how you invest your money. Other investments are probably doing better than real estate right now. Real estate is not the market, so developers might be able to put their money
Gotta
elsewhere.
cut you off there. Okay, I do want to move through. I will, a quick response, yeah.
Yes. Really quickly, I think that the mayor's right. There's a lot of good that's gone on. I'm happy to have been a part of that for the last almost decade. And I think when you talk about inclusionary zoning, you talk about, the interest rates going up, and it's not really a market for that. We waited till 5,000 units were built before the leader of the city decided to get on board with affordable housing from a municipal perspective. And as far as the taxes go, I'm very proud to have voted every single year for a lower tax rate on our residents.
Gonna cut you off, if that's okay. We got to move on. We have several questions to get into. Other questions that will take some time. Different topic. The Worcester Police Department. I think we can all agree it has been in the spotlight. The U.S. Department of Justice is investigating the department for excessive use of force and discriminatory policing based on race and sex, and there continue to be lawsuits against the department for falsifying police reports and fabricating evidence. Most recently, now former police chief Steve Sargent retired amid accusations of harassment and inappropriate behavior. Ms. Calorio, how do you plan to ensure that the police department is held accountable and that Worcester families can trust it?
Okay, great question. So first and foremost, some of the things that you mentioned, like harassment or everything like that, that's really in the HR department. That has nothing to do with us, you know. So I think the HR department will cover that. Then we have to make sure that we have the structure in place so that all, this is an equal opportunity, you know, thing. Everything is handled properly. You know, that's our job, is to make sure it's handled properly, because the last thing we want is, you know, we don't want, you know, all the things that you mentioned. We want our police force to be strong. We want, you know, them to abide by the rules, and we have to be really careful on being very thoughtful on how we go about things. So I think it is our job to make sure that, you know, things are done properly. Thank you.
You know, I think I have to disagree with Councilor Calorio. You know, I think the reality is that it is our job to talk about the process when it comes to HR, but I also think it's our job to talk to the interim chief about the culture. I've already done that. You know, I'm on this Human Rights Commission, and the Human Rights Commission has an intimate relationship with our Worcester Police Department. They come into our commission almost on a quarterly basis and talk to us about what they want to see in the future. And we talk to them about ensuring that we are pushing forward an equitable agenda for our city and its residents. And so I'm glad that I have a good and solid relationship with our police leadership, because I believe that's where it starts. But I believe that we have to push back as individuals that are elected officials to ensure that our police department is held to its highest standards. Because what they are doing every day is not something that any of us can say we do. But ultimately, it's important for us to ensure that we are moving them and challenging them to ensure that they are creating an equitable city and really approaching things in a different manner.
I think our police department has been challenged, not only over the last couple of years, but for many years. You know, there was a lawsuit that went on for almost 25 years regarding the lack of hiring and promoting very qualified members of the black community who were police officers. And sadly, one of the police officers involved in that lawsuit died and never got to see, you know, the end results of their hard work and the constant lawsuits and the court battles and so on and so forth. I'd like to see a new lens looked upon as a different type of public safety component for the city of Worcester, and that may include going down the road the rebuilding of a brand new police station with a whole different mission than our current police station. I will support new classes coming in, because we do have a lot of police officers that are retiring, and I will support new classes coming into the police station, but I also will support having a series of public hearings throughout this community, asking people how they feel about community. As an elected official, if I'm so elected to the Worcester City Council, I will be putting forth the voice of the people in matters of the police department and city administration. So I'd like to see something down the road where you know, we hold these public hearings, even if it's a commission on the study of public safety in the city of Worcester.
Mr. King.
Yes. You know, with regards to the concerns that you referenced, the Office of the Mayor has been silent on these concerns. I've rolled up my sleeves and I've gone to work. I've been part of community groups, and we brought forward equity audits that we requested on Human Resources, Worcester Police, Health and Human Services. I rolled up my sleeves and I went to work. I was meeting monthly for a couple of years, and I still meet with the diversity officers to try to recruit and retain a diverse workforce for Worcester Police Department. I think the important thing is that, you know, police save lives. We call them when there's an emergency. You know, and when there's a concern, we should address it. The Mayor of Worcester decides who chairs committees. We have a public safety committee. We are the legislative branch, and the Public Safety Committee has failed to conduct any oversight hearings with regards to the concerns you brought forward. The mayor, in our rules, is able to chair any committee at any time that he or she feels necessary, and it simply hasn't happened. I support good policing, and I support accountability. And, you know, I think we can continue to build, because police cannot solve crimes by themselves. It requires the intersection of police and community, and that's something I support.
Mr. Petty, would you care to respond?
Yeah, the mayor hasn't been silent on this issue. I met with the black families together on a regular basis to get through the accountability standards that we produced over a year ago with the previous city manager. Those will never happen, some of those accountability standards. Some of those were 6-5 votes. And, but we'll get through the accountability standards. We're going to get an equity audit, which should be out pretty soon, on the Worcester Police Department. We have a chief diversity officer that we just hired here in the Worcester Police Department. We have an appeals procedure. If people feel that they've been wrong, that's going to be out of City Hall currently right now. Our current chief believes in accountability and transparency. He has put up the records on anybody who's been ticketed or arrested in the Worcester Police. They go up on the internet now. You can see those reports, those police reports. So I think transparency is pretty good right now. And I think the chief's doing a good job getting out in the community, which he needs to be out in the community. It's not about dividing the city of Worcester. It's about supporting, get things done. I don't divide. I work quietly sometimes in order to get things done. You can ask anybody in this community that I'm out there. I'm trying to be collaborative because you can't get nothing done when you want to be at the end of a 8-3 vote every single time. So I support accountability, and I will continue to support that going forward.
Mr. King, I will come to you. Just want to make, you didn't raise your, nobody else?
No, I'll just say that, you know, I support the police. I support us fully funding their budget. I supported the police in the schools. I supported the Shot Spotter Connect. I really think they're doing a great job. And I think there's always room to look at things and evaluate and to get us better and better.
I think the reality here is that we need to make sure that we're electing individuals that want to work with everyone here. You know, I think we need to establish a strong relationship between our police department and city council and really understand, you know, how do we move our city forward in an equitable lens. I've been doing that on the Human Rights Commission over the last couple of years, and I'm excited to do it in a different capacity.
Sure. You know, I just wanted to reiterate that the equity audits that were referenced by the mayor was something that I, along with Black Families Together, brought to the mayor and the city manager, and we worked together with the chief on that. I also worked with the chief on the current school safety planning. So I've rolled up my sleeves and I've gone to work there. And, you know, I think the idea that, you know, I'm a former basketball coach in college and I played it. And when people do well, we give them commendations. And when they don't do well, what we want to see is a report back to the council about how are you changing policy and procedures to be better. We can always be better.
Mr. Petty?
Yeah, and the Black Families Together, those were my meetings, along with the city manager's meeting, and that's why we got a lot of this stuff done. Councilor King talks about supporting the police. He asked 3 times to cut their budget, which included police classes. And he also voted 10-1 against one of the police budgets.
Mr. Coleman, would you like to?
As you can see that the existing city councilors have their own lens on what they feel is important and what they think they've done. I think this the city needs to elect new people to bring new, fresh ideas, a different lens to how city operates and looking at the police department. I mean, I really support a long-term within the next few years that we need to start looking at building a brand new police station and a public safety component for our community.
I just need to rebut. He specifically misrepresented part of my record. And I would just like to say this. Always supported the police classes. You know, it's important that we have an appropriate amount of police on the streets. And, you know, we had a council that failed to vote on the police budget at all, despite my attempts to make them do so.
Okay, all right.
I did not change his record. He asked to cut the budget. 3 times Don Corio held those items, and he also voted against one of the budget, the police budget, on the 10-1 vote in the 21 budget season.
Okay, moving on.
One vote.
I don't know.
This next question is a two-parter. A two-parter involving climate change. Research shows
Go ahead, sorry.
Research shows the warming planet is driving more extreme weather in our region, which we saw this summer with heavy rainfall and flash flooding. It's fueling questions about whether Worcester and its infrastructure is prepared for more intense weather events. For you, Mr. Coleman, we know that Worcester, the city already has its Green Worcester plan. which is a roadmap to respond to climate change. But what will you do to ensure Worcester stays climate ready? And how do you think the city can take more steps in the near term to reduce emissions?
I think by having an open public conversation with the community, series of community meetings and starting at the senior center, at the Worcester Public Library, invitations for people to write into the city of Worcester to say, how do you see Worcester in this whole area of climate change? You know, how do we see Worcester? You know, when I saw all the rain coming in, so many weekends of constant rain, and I look at our drains, you know, are we able to handle it down at our water filtration plant? You know, is the public informed? What can we do to think globally and act locally on and educating ourselves and our children? In our public schools, are we calling for climate change discussions, you know, at all levels in our schools? Are we asking our high school students to come out with ideas? Are we having contests in this community? Are we asking our senior citizens? I think we need to start asking those questions and bring about a report through the community to the council, and then have the council have its discussion on it, bringing it to the city manager, and then asking for the city manager to say, what do you need? We got $150 million during COVID. What part of that money went to to looking at, you know, our future with regards to climate change? I want to know.
Care to respond?
Yeah, sure. So I'm looking through it through my common sense lens again, and I think that, you know, with the Worcester Green Deal, new Green Deal, we have to, first of all, I think we have to review this plan as we go along, like like, you know, Bill mentioned, we do have to get the community involvement and say, okay, we've done this so far. Has it benefited us? Has it been cost effective? Are we ready for the next step? I think when, you know, we look at the different goals that are listed in this proposal, we find that some of them may not be might be unrealistic, and we have to maybe slow down and say, okay, so it won't be, you know, 2030, it might be 2035. So I think reviewing of the process periodically, readjusting and understanding if these goals are unrealistic.
Yes, Mr. Kuhn.
Yes. You know, as a social worker in my profession, you have to rely on the evidence-based research. And, you know, I support the Green Worcester plan. I think that we should, on a regular basis, take a look at it, update it, amend it as appropriate. I'm very proud that I stood up and I was leading on the stretch code and having a shorter time frame to realize that option to make Worcester greener. I think the idea of civics is important. I met with a group of students over at Forest Grove, and they had ideas and options. And I think that, you know, partnering, we have a committee that partners with education. We should be partnering with our schools and our educators and educating folks about this. Civics is extremely important, and I think what we have to continue to do, if it's housing, if it's inclusionary zoning, whatever it is, that we look at the research and not rely on anecdotes.
Mr. Kramer.
So, you know, when we talk about climate, we really talk about the future of the city. You know, I'm the youngest person up here, and the reality is that I am only 2 years younger than the average resident of the city of Worcester. And so we need to think about that, and we need to put on that lens to ensure that we're creating a greener Worcester. And the problem when we say green is that many people just assume it equals expensive. And we need to get rid of that. We need to start embracing the fact that it'll get more expensive if we don't take action now. Our infrastructure is not ready. Every single time it's raining out, we know which roads get flooded. We all know at this point because we live in the city. We're out and about and we see what roads are getting flooded. And so our infrastructure isn't keeping up. And we have to make sure that we're building towards the future because this weather is only going to get worse. And so I don't want to bring, you know, I don't want my husband and I to bring a child into this world where everything is just a mess and the infrastructure isn't going to keep up. You know, and so when I think about a greener Worcester, I'm thinking about my future, my soon-to-be kids' future. That's the type of lens that I think we need in order to push green Worcester forward.
Mr. Petty.
Yeah, sure. The Worcester Green Plan is an important plan. We started that several years ago. By 2035, we should meet some of those requirements. And my kids will tell me, Dad, you got to take care of us. This is the most important issue after affordable housing. Just probably just as an equal an issue. And we started the infrastructure improvements here in the city of Worcester. I put the Route 20 task force together to improve the infrastructure there, which created some flooding issues. It made sure those flooding issues went away. It also created parcels of land for development. We also plant a number of trees, especially which needs to be done throughout the city of Worcester, especially in the core of the city of Worcester. That's environmentally sound. We have the Worcester Next plan, the Streetscape plan, which talks about equity and sustainability to make sure that our environment is sustained, that we can put these improvements in to make our city more greener, more amenable to what's going on in the climate here in the city of Worcester. We put a lot of infrastructure changes. We decreased the flooding of the streets. Some of the streets still get flooded. But in these last several storms, if you notice, there's a huge difference right now in the city of Worcester, the way it handles the water flow here in the city of
I
Worcester.
mean, we saw just what happened up north.
Yes.
And our
Yep.
neighbors up north.
Yep.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Coleman. Would you care to add anything?
The only thing I want to, what I want to say is when people see when the rain comes and, we saw it all the summer, all I saw was trash coming down the streets through the piles and through the literally rivers of water. And people want a very clean, safe neighborhood and a clean, safe city. So all that we can do to each individual clean up the city of Worcester and to let the city know on an immediate basis and that 311 number when there's flooding, where there's flooding, so the city can keep track of where it needs to put its attention. I think that will be very important for the folks in this community.
Would either of you?
No,
like
I'm
to
all
add
set.
anything?
No, I think I just want to elaborate. Councilor King touched on this. We need to listen to our youth. Our young people are the ones that have been leading this for a while now. And so we need to understand that even though there's an 8th or 7th grader that has an idea, they should have a seat at the table to actually talk to us about these ideas because they're the ones that are going to inherit all of this. So we have to make sure we're uplifting our youth.
Sam, I think one of the things that I hear out there is that it seems as though there's some sort of an age gap with some of these concerns regarding a green economy and a green Worcester. I think one of the things that we can do as a city is promote publicly what the green economy will do to lift us up and increase our tax base. We have to make sure our trades are ready to move into that new economy, make sure our young people in our vocational schools and in regular schools are ready for that economy because it's going to lift us all up, it's going to make us healthier, and it's going to increase the tax base.
Got it. And
All set?
Yep. Okay. We only have about 15 minutes left, unfortunately, but we'll see how many more questions we can get to. Mr. Kramer, next one is for you. As you all know, Worcester has a form of government in which the city's manager serves as the CEO, making everyday decisions. City council, including the mayor, is responsible for holding the manager accountable by hiring and firing them. Residents around Worcester, again, this is no secret, they've expressed a desire that because the city manager is not democratically elected, they shouldn't have so much power. And these people would like the city to change its charter so that Worcester adopts a form of government more like that of Boston and Providence, where the mayor is the CEO. Now, city council would potentially be involved in that process of changing the charter. Mr. Kramer, how would you feel about such a change?
So I've probably been one of the most vocal individuals up here with the fact that I think Plan E isn't working for Worcester. I think the reality is we're the second largest city in New England. I do not think that the form of government that we currently have actually helps our residents. I think our city manager is a good individual. I think he's doing a good job. And this isn't about the city manager. This is about the form of government. And to me, we have to make sure that we are democratically electing those that want to be in power. I'll say this outright. If I'm elected as mayor, first day, what I will say in my inaugural speech is we will move to have this review because we have to do that. And so I've been unapologetic about the fact that Plan E doesn't make sense. And the reality is when you talk to the average resident here in the city of Worcester, they don't know that we have a Plan E form of system. And so that's just, so we live in a bubble where we know that this is the case, and we normally are around folks that understand we have a city manager. But the average resident who is not paying attention, who is not focused on the news, they don't know that we have that type of government. And so they don't understand the logistics of it. So my hope is that the 2 years that I'm in there, we're shifting towards that direction. Now, I'm not saying that I want to be the strong mayor of Worcester, but I want to be the individual that spearheads us into that direction, because I believe that that's only going to benefit our residents in the long term.
Mr. Coleman?
Well, I believe, we first elected to change our form of government to Plan E in 1948. Before that, we had a so-called strong mayor form of government. We had a board of aldermen. We had a common council of 39 members. And, Plan E works for the city of Worcester. Plan E works for what we have. In 1983, we changed our charter a couple of different times. And if you want to change the charter, you got to collect 15,000 certified signatures to put a question on a ballot, unless you go home rule petition, which is a whole different ball game. But in 1983, we added district city councilors, and that was to give the folks more of a chance. What we need to do with our current form of government is to add if we do a home rule petition, to add term limits to the city council. Every four terms, you take a year off and then you come back again. That would infuse more and newer ideas on our city council. Our city council is stagnant. And although we're getting a lot of things done, the mayor's the most accessible mayor that we've had, and I've seen a lot of mayors over the years, and we've had city councilors who are out in the community. They're meeting with people. They're bringing their voice back, but the ideas are not translating. And our city manager, Eric Batista, is doing a great job. 9 years waiting in the wings. And he finally gets a chance to become city manager, and there was some confusion and some inner and outer fighting on the council on that. But he's doing the job. And I think there's other ideas that we can implement in the future that will help us appreciate this valuable tool we call Plan E form of government.
Ms. Caloria?
So first of all, I look at other cities that have a strong mayor, and I say, hell no. I just think that we have the Plan E. I think it works for us. Now, whether we want to expand it or not, or we want to, tweak it a little bit, I'm for that if we want to open up the charter and we want to look at some of the things. But I think this Plan E does work. Now, I look at other cities or towns that have, like we mentioned before, 20 or 30 city councilors. So maybe the expansion of more city councilors, especially for the amount of people that we represent, it's sometimes overwhelming. So maybe that would be an option. I mean, I would be open for that, but I think that right now our Plan E form of government works well, and I think that, if we had a little bit more help, I think that would help out. Thank you.
There seems to be quite a bit of disagreement on this issue. Mr. Kramer, I will let you, before I come to you two, if you want to
Sure.
rebut
I mean,
anything.
look, I think Plan E doesn't help certain counselors, which is why ultimately that is not the direction that folks want to go in. I mean, respectfully, I am the freshest face at this table. There have been sitting councilors that are here. There's a mayor that we've had for 12 years. And Bill Coleman has been an activist since the 70s here in the city and is well known for that. And so ultimately, what I'm pushing us for is a new direction. And I think that that's something that we need to embrace. And so Plan E does push for low voter turnout. And that's just how it relates.
No, me?
Mr. Petty?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Well, we could do, I've talked about it. We haven't reviewed the charter in almost 40 years. So the mid-1980s, we did a charter review, a charter commission. If people want to take this seriously, you have to do a charter commission. You bring the community in to be part of that charter commission. In my mind, the Plan E form of government has proven very successful here in the city of Worcester. It's very honest government, too. We look at all the stuff, all the great strides we made here, the investments in our neighborhoods, the investments in our downtown area, in our business community. It's about people. It's about who's in charge as the mayor, who's the city manager, and how do they get along. I changed that dynamic when I became mayor of the city of Worcester, almost becoming a partnership. Before, it was always an adversarial relationship back in the 80s and the 90s between the mayor and, and the city manager. And people sometimes didn't know who was in charge in that type of government because everybody was doing their own thing. So what I bring to the table is collaboration making sure that the city manager is successful, making sure the city council is successful, and making sure the city is successful. But if people want a charter commission, there's a lot of things that people want to change in the charter, just besides the form of government, but there's a lot of things in that charter that probably could be reviewed anyways.
Mr. King, I'm going to come to you. We have 10 minutes left. I think we could try to squeeze in another question. I'll let you, Mr. King, I'll let
My
you.
answer won't take 10 minutes. So, you know, we are the legislative branch. City manager is the executive branch, and it requires oversight. It requires that we hold the city manager to account. For this system to work, we have to do exactly that. And, you know, there's often a reticence around doing that. Mayor Petty has had a great relationship with our past city manager. City had other challenge relationships prior to that. The one thing I do know from my experiences in governing for close to a decade is that the democratic process does require tension sometimes. It requires sharing different thoughts. And I think what community is looking for right now during these times is accountability. And the community feels like they do not have accountability in this current model. I certainly would support exploring, you know, a strong mayor. I can tell you that I will never be a weak mayor. I will never be a ceremonial mayor when elected. And I will lead. I will lead with intention, and I'll put our people first and make sure, once again, that we don't become Boston. I love Worcester.
Ms. Glorio, I want to give you a chance to respond.
I really don't have more to add, but, you know, like I said before, it works for Worcester right now. If we could, you know, look at it, there's certain parts of the charter that I think need to be reviewed. And if we can do that, you know, I would be in favor of that.
One last response, anybody?
Just for
Quick?
clarification,
Yes.
you
Quickly.
know, as quickly mentioned, you know, the city council can vote to put it on the ballot. We have the ability to do that. It doesn't require all the signatures if that was the will of the council. Elections matter.
Okay.
Just real quick,
Yeah.
that's non-binding.
Yeah.
And that would be a great idea to survey the community, but you need, how many city councils would vote to put a non-binding question on the ballot, just to survey the people of Worcester?
Yeah, I just want to say
Come
one.
forward
Yeah.
a few
Yeah,
times
yeah, I mean,
asking
I'm
non-binding questions
definitely not,
for us.
I am definitely
Hold on, hold
opposed to putting it on the ballot as a city councilor, as I was opposed to put the CPA tax on as well. We need the public buy-in. We talk about accountability, we talk about engaging the public, and then we go behind the public's back and we put it on the ballot like we did with the CPA tax. No, I'm definitely not for that. What we have to do is we have to get the 15,000 signatures, and we have to work hard, and we have to get it on, and then once it gets on the ballot, then we have 15,000 people that vested in the process right off the bat.
Yeah, we'll get it done.
And I'd just
Anybody
like to
else?
respond. It's not a sense of a weak mayor or a weak council. It's sort of a strong city council when you have 6 votes. But you remember one thing, too. The city manager runs the city. The superintendent runs the schools. What the mayor does is try to coordinate the 2 parties to get things done to make sure the city moves forward.
Okay, we do have to move on, Mr. King.
Really quick, but really quickly, I
We
mean,
go
we need the
4 times?
public to know that the city
Yeah, we gotta
council
move on.
provides the oversight.
Yeah.
We hire the manager.
Mr.
They are accountable to the elected body.
Mr. Petty mentioned schools, and I think that's a good segue for this final question. One of the overlooked duties of Worcester Mayor, as you know, Mr. Petty, is serving on the Worcester School Committee and helping manage an annual district budget of $500 million. If elected, what will be your priorities for Worcester School District? And I have nobody to direct this question to. This is a free-for-all. So,
All right.
yes, Mr. Coleman.
I think what we need to do is we need to look at our schools. We're building new schools in Worcester. We need to continue to build more new schools in Worcester. Springfield, Massachusetts is bragging about the amount of money they've gotten to refurbish some of their old antiquated infrastructures. And as mayor, I would be one not only to fight for new schools, but to go to Boston, to sit on that education committee, to lobby for more funding for studies for new schools. We need a new school at the bottom of the Grafton Street School, the oldest school in the city of Worcester, East Middle School. You know, we need to get more funding to either revamp or replace those older infrastructures. And as mayor, I would be a strong voice that will address that issue.
Ms. Gloria.
Thank you. So as a former school committee member, 2 terms, I can tell you what I voted for because that's facts. Like, I can tell you what I voted for so you know that this is what I would advocate for. And what I advocated for was always frontline educators, teachers, IAs. So when the budget came, we have line item discretion as opposed to city council. So we could ask for, can we take this amount of money in administration and put it towards teachers and IAs? And that's exactly what I did, and that's exactly what I supported. I never did anything but that because I believe that the key to good education is in the quality of our teachers, and our teachers are the most important thing, and I really believe that that's what I would focus on. Thank you.
Councilor King had his hand up first.
Yep.
Thank you. As a social worker, I've worked within those public schools and with those public schools for close to 30 years. I have a firsthand view of all the challenges our educators have and the needs of the families and the children that attend our schools. One of the things that I would prioritize is what I've done in the past, that is work towards ensuring social emotional development and opportunities for our kids. We need to have more nurses, more social workers, more psychologists, more after-school program. We have to educate our children, not just during class, but after school as well. I'm proud to have brought back middle school sports in the city of Worcester. We can't have our educators, our police even officers, or our fire folks, or people that work for the city, going somewhere else because of a better salary, a better working conditions, more resources. I supported the Fair Share Amendment. One of the first things I would do is, what's our fair share of money from that particular matter? I fought for making sure that you know, we have the proper funding.
King.
Yes.
Gotta cut you off in a few seconds.
But just the last thing, you know, again, I'm a father of 3 girls,
Yep.
2 of whom, one who graduated from Worcester Public Schools. My current daughter is in dual language programming. We have to put our educators first.
Mr. Kramer.
So I'm a product. I'm a product of our public schools. You know, I attended Elm Park. I learned English in our school system, and so I'm proud to have been endorsed by the EAW. And the reality here is that our teachers are struggling. They are yearning for us to pay attention. I'm so glad you brought this up, even though it's the last question we have. One of the reasons why I ran for mayor was because of the excitement of chairing the school committee. You know, being a part of the school committee and really ensuring that our public schools have someone who is committed to ensuring that we're increasing the budget for our schools, because we haven't in years. And so the fact that we are doing the bare minimum for our schools is already a step in the wrong direction. And so we have to elect someone who is committed to creating a 5-year plan to really increasing that number over the next few years. Because it's not just about building new schools, because we're not going to be able to build every new school for the city. But we have to make sure that the quality inside of our classroom walls also reflect what we care for the future for the city.
Mr. Petty.
Yeah, it's one of the prides I have is chairing the Worcester School Committee. I think that the schools are going in the right direction. We brought Rachel Monterez in as the superintendent of school. She's putting in the systems in place. You see the change in the schools currently right now. And if you look at one of the things I'm very proud of is the Student Opportunity Act. I pushed that. I threatened a lawsuit. We got Michael Angelini and Bowich and Dewey to be volunteers for us. You know how much we got out of that? $100 million over a 6-year period. I'm very proud that we gave our teachers, all our educators, our paraeducators, a good contract, a very good contract, one of the best contracts they ever received, to keep them here because we're competing with other districts throughout the city of Worcester. My priority is also build a new Burncoat High School. I promised 3 high schools before I leave office. I got 2 of them done. I want 1 more, plus East Middle. And also look at all the infrastructure. I'm proud of the direction of the Worcester Public Schools. I want to thank Molly McCullough for also really working hard to make sure we get middle school sports done here in the city of Worcester.
Mr. Coleman, you wanted to chime in.
No, I'd like an opportunity for a closing statement.
Oh, well, we are going to wrap it up. Unfortunately, we are not doing closing statements.
Then I'll take my time.
Well, try to stick to this question.
Sure.
And whoever, Mr. King, I'll come to you, but we are wrapping it up, but let's stick to this question.
Okay, you'd read the question again so that the folks.
It's about serving on the school committee, chairing the school committee, and what your priorities will be.
My priorities as if elected mayor and to opportunity to serve on the chair, I will imitate what our current mayor has done. He's been with the parents, with the community. He's been the voice of a lot of folks that are intimidated by the whole school committee process, including people in. And I would just mirror that and expand it a little bit more to involve more students to give them a voice at the table. Because I haven't seen that and talked to those student government leaders to be more proactive in listening to their concerns about public education.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Mr. King?
Sure. I just want to reiterate the Student Opportunities Act. I advocated on Beacon Hill with NAACP and other folks, making sure that we got our funding. The mayor absolutely led on that as well. And we appreciate that. One of the other things that I think that we need to be focusing on is our staff. I've worked for the last 3 years with diversity officer on recruiting and diversifying our staff, making sure that discipline is not disproportionate in any way. And I think that part of economic development is making sure we have a good, thorough, and robust school system.
Okay.
And that's something that will always be a priority.
Last call, yes.
One issue, and I think Council King brought it up too, is diversifying the educational and the paraeducators that reflect the students that they're teaching. We're in the process of doing that now at Worcester State University, Worcester Community College, to make sure that people go into the teaching field here in the city.
I have to respond to that because
Okay, quick, because I'm gonna come back to that.
The program was not effective in diversifying the staff in terms. No, we're talking about the Worcester State program that was going on previously. I worked with the Worcester Public Schools on that issue. And lastly, one of the other priorities is on how we're maintaining our buildings. That particular strategy and master plan has not been recently recreated.
Okay.
We need to focus on that.
No, we're in the process of doing that.
In the process.
We-
Not done.
I'm going to add one more
We'll
thing.
finish with you too.
It elapsed 5 years
so,
ago.
So one of the things that I advocated for on Beacon Hill is to eliminate the MCAS. And I'm very strong about standardized testing and how that has really played a part in maybe kids not getting the best education possible because our teachers feel obligated to teach the test. So I've done it before, I've advocated for it, and I would continue to advocate for that as well.
I think the last thing I'll say is ultimately our bilingual program resources need to be strengthened. I learned English in our public schools, and I'm proud of that. And I know that there are so many students that are learning English in our public schools, and so we got to make sure those resources are there. I'm looking forward to serving as mayor and chairing that school committee.
That'll be a wrap. Unfortunately, we could continue, but that's a wrap. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Thank you all viewers for tuning in. The only thing we could say is go out and vote. November 7th, go out and vote. Thank you so much.
Mr. Petty.